What's a happening, YouTube? This is John, nerding out with cards, and here we're going to go through the usual tops run. And I'm going to save you all a break for my face and get straight into the cards. So, first card I want to show you is a modern card, but it kind of ties into this, right? So here you have this 2011 tops. It was the Lost cards, right? And they had come out with this set, kind of going back into the bubblegum card wars book, the Bowman versus Top stuff. So as we all know, Musial had a gap in cards. Notably, he did not have a 1956 Tops, which is the first year that Tops had its monopoly going on. So they come out with this 56 theme Musial card, and you see it's got that sticker auto again. This was not pack pulled this way. This is actually another gift from a guy I know, and so you see on the back here the lost cards, and it talks about Musial's 56th season. Still doing great things, but notably on here, although Stan did not appear in the top set, the company had purchased picture rights from the competitive Bowman brand in January of that year, meaning that star players no longer would be excluded from the set due to litigation. And you can tell that this is not a pack pulled auto because it's got this sticker right here, from Stan the Man Inc. But I thought it was kind of a neat tie-in to this video because it had to do with that time period, right? So wanted to show that off, and then kind of just get into the Tops run of Musial. And we all know that his first Tops card was this 58 All-Star selection. It's an iconic card. I remember growing up, it was like, that was, like one of the top Musial cards out there. Go crazy card collecting. He was showing off that surf book. I remember having one of those as a kid, and you see this in there. Like, great image. Normally I like the color match, the red, kind of like the red hearts and whatnot, but I really think the blue on this works out because, Musial just really pops, right? Here's the back. I love this copy. It says, no All-Star team could be complete without Stan the Man Musial. For 17 years, he's established record after record and has delighted fans with his great clutch hitting and stylish play. 7 times Stan led the National League in batting, and early this season he joined the select group of all-time greats by collecting his 3,000th hit. And stats, against each team and whatnot. Amazing card. The guy, he's a 23-time All-Star by the end of his career, but yet this is the only Tops All-Star card. You think of, the 59 set had great All-Star cards, 60 set had tremendous All-Star cards, and I don't really understand why Stan wasn't included in those sets, even though he was an All-Star. And it's really kind of a shame because those designs are amazing. But here's Musial's quote-unquote first Tops card, his only All-Star Tops card. Amazing stuff. I would say that if you're wanting to have like a Stan card in your collection, I mean, it's hard to beat that one. We fast forward, his first base Tops card, I guess, if that's what you want to call it, the 59 set. Really cool design. He's got the follow through on his swing. It's kind of one of those things. Back in the day, they didn't have batting helmets, right? So that's what he wore when he was batting. Here Tops gets into the line item by line item of each year for statistics, which is great, especially like, a lot of us that learned about players based on their statistics at the back of baseball cards. It is kind of unfortunate that there's not really a description of Stan the Man, but that's okay. You can see by this point, already had 3,100 hits, career 340 average. I mean, whew, Yeah, tremendous card of Stan. This was my first playing Days Musial card, and I just love it, right? It's got that artistic rendition of a tremendous, tremendous milestone. Yeah, he's the only Cardinal in history to have 3,000 hits as a Cardinal. And yeah, we know that, like Lou Brock got his 3,000th hit with the Cardinals. Pujols has over 3,000 hits, but Musial's he's the man, tops, And it talks about, the day that Musial achieved this career milestone. He actually wasn't even in the starting lineup because they wanted him to hit it at home, but being the competitor that he is, Cardinals trying to win a game, he comes in to pitch hit and gets his 3,000th hit. Harry Carey, who at the time was a Cardinals announcer, made an iconic call of that hit. But yeah, this is a tremendous card. Like, this set is so cool, and it gets a lot of airplay here on the YouTube, so I'm sure most of you are very, very familiar with this card. Let's set that back there. Oh, another great card. Shout out to Billy Ballgame. Loves the 60 set. This thing is so cool, right? It's got the batting image, the portrait. I really like what they did with the letters here, the alternating colors. Oh, it's so cool. This is a newer edition in recent months for me. But yeah, this is really cool. That's where I start getting, these cartoon images, this one's awesome. Batting leader 7 times. That's really cool. And then, season highlights, his 400th home run. Drives in 4 runs. 652nd double to set a National League record. Oh, man. Gets hit number 3,200, ironically, over the Cubs again. Stan would have had a lot more home runs if he played in some other ballparks, I'll tell you what. Sportsman's Park had this giant fence over in right field. Probably led to a lot of doubles, but took away a lot of home runs. This is an amazing card. I mean, who does not love the 60 set? Even if you don't like horizontal cards, this thing's great. The 61 set, I would say it's not a spectacularly designed set, but I really like this image of Musial. And there's something to say about the simplicity of a card too. Like, this is pretty sharp. But we're getting later and later on in Musial's career. Another statistical back. Coming up on 3,300 hits from Musial there. This is on kind of where we see his average dip for a few years, but still hitting 335 for his career at this point. Man. Yeah, so 1961 Topps, Stan the Man. And, I alluded to before, this card right here is kind of what set me off on this trajectory to getting the full flagship run, this 1962. And I really, really like this copy. We know this set, very condition sensitive, chipping and edge wear, whatever. And I'm really happy with I was able to get this copy, for far cheaper than what I had anticipated this card would cost. But again, here we get back into, big moment for Stan, with a home run in the 12th inning of the 55 All-Star game. Gets into, after breaking in with St. Louis in 1941, Stan won 7 National League batting titles. Although it's difficult to pick out his best year, some authorities choose 1948 when the man hit 376 and led the NL with 131 RBIs. He has played in 21 All-Star games. So Topps wants to talk about all of his All-Star games, celebrating an All-Star game, but not make an All-Star card of him. I don't get it. I said the same thing in my Ozzie Smith videos. Like, why? And then in 62, they came out with this commemorative card, Musial plays 21st season. Really kind of neat, picture of his swing. So I think that's pretty cool. But this one's just a statistical backing. Yeah, 3,400 hits by this point in his career. Man, when he retired, he was the all-time leader in National League history with hits until Pete Rose. And then his final playing days card, you got this 1963 Topps. I absolutely love this copy. The centering of it, I mean, just the blues all there. And again, that picture-in-picture, the batting stance, the portrait, much like the 60 set. Topps has done this quite a bit, notably like 83 and whatnot. So really, really good card. And this is a special card, right? Because it's his last playing days card. End of an era. Another statistical backing. At this point, 3,500 hits. Getting his batting average back up over 300, which you'll see commemorated on the next card. Yeah, special card. Doop, 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 doop. With this card right here, 62 NL batting leaders. Tommy Davis, he gets forgotten about, but Bill White, Cardinals Hall of Famer. Like I mentioned before, I got a Frank Robinson card. I got a Hank Aaron card, thanks to Stan the Man. These league leader cards are just so cool. And I know there's a handful of us here on the YouTube, kind of beating that drum of multiplayer cards, league leader cards. Maybe a change is a-coming. Maybe these will become much more sought after. And these league leader cards are cool too because it goes down the line. You kind of see all the great seasons people had. You got Clemente's name on there, Cepeda, Flood, Grote, Boyer. It's good stuff. Yeah, big fan of league leader cards, of course. And then, if I could have an all-time great Cardinal, add to my collection, and then get some all-time greats with that, that's even better. And this is one of my favorite Musial cards. Took this to Oracle Park with me while I was out there being a dork. The pride of the NL, Willie Mays, Stan the Man. And what's cool is I bought this here in California last year, so it's kind of neat, that tie-in. Saw it at a table, but I thought it was a great price anyway. Snagged it. The back on this one's just outstanding. Talks about two of just the amazing greats in baseball history. Two of the major league's most famous sluggers are Willie Mays and Stan Musial. Willie, now in his 11th complete season with the Giants, is one of the most feared hitters in baseball. The Say Hey Kid, a notorious 300 batter, connected for 49 home runs in 62 to lead the majors. Willie won the NL batting crown in 1954 with a .345 mark. His great speed and fielding ability constantly excites the fans. Stan Musial started his career with St. Louis in '41. His countless achievements fill many pages of the record books. The popular outfielder has won 7 National League batting crowns, and in 1948, he had one of his peak seasons when he hit .376. For 16 consecutive seasons, Stan never hit below .312. I mean, that's amazing. And in the NL, a great home run hitter. The Cardinal star has ripped 463 major league round trippers. Now, we all know that he ended up at 475, just 25 away from 500. Who knows if, without the war, if he could have had it. Again, if he had, played in potentially a different ballpark, could he have had it? Doesn't really matter. He's an all-time great. So anyway, this is the Musial Topps run. I hope you all enjoyed it, and you all have a good one.